Hey, I'd like to welcome everybody who has joined us for today's webinar session. Welcome to today's Quest Experience Week. My name is Derek Schrader with Quest, and I'll be moderating today's session. Before we go ahead and kick things off, we do have a few quick housekeeping notes to go over before we get started. And just a reminder to all the attendees, please remain muted throughout the session unless prompted by the speaker to unmute. We are reserving some time at the end of the session for Q&A, so feel free to enter those into the Zoom chat, and we will address the questions at the end as time permits. And then if you do have a general question just around the event on the whole, please contact registration@questoraclecommunity.org, or you can feel free to send me a message. My name is Derek Schrader in the chat, and I'll be happy to take care of you from there. Also, as a reminder for everybody, this session is being recorded and will be available in the Quest content library for paid Quest members after the event concludes. And at this time, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Candide Lopez with Denovo. Candide, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being on this session today. I'm just going to go through a quick agenda and give you a little bit of an introduction of my background, and we will jump right in. I've been working with JD Edwards software for over 25 years. I've been working in operations for over 35 years. I am a certified supply chain specialist for Oracle, and I am currently the Director of Program Management at Denovo. It's good to have you guys with us today. So quick agenda, the main focus today is really trying to understand better some of the aspects of advanced pricing that are a little less well known. So we're going to talk about how do we unlock the power of some of those tools. So today's session is not about the basics of advanced pricing. The idea here is I'm assuming that most of you already know advanced pricing. You might already be using advanced pricing. And you're here because you want to understand how can we better utilize it, or how can we simplify using it to get more power out of the system. So I'm going to talk about very high level advanced pricing just to give everybody an overview. Then I'm going to jump into how can we streamline our pricing structures, how can we reduce maintenance efforts, and then how can we leverage some related modules, specifically today, advanced preferences, to enhance the efficiency of pricing. So we're going to start with the overview. Advanced pricing is probably one of the most complex aspects of any business. It usually takes quite a bit of time to plan it, to set it all up, and then can take a lot of effort to maintain it going forward. Once you've got your model in place, the implementation of it is usually very straightforward. You know exactly what needs to be done. You set up your schedules, your adjustments, your details, and you kind of just start rolling forward with data entry, if you will. You can use advanced pricing to manage all of your pricing, or you can also use base pricing in conjunction with advanced pricing. If you're not familiar with the differences between base pricing and advanced pricing, you can always ping me and I can help with any questions that you might have in regard to that as well. But you can certainly even have all of your base pricing in advanced pricing and not use base pricing as we know it in the 4106 at all. Advanced pricing is available in these 5 systems: procurement, sales order management, service, case management, and blend management. If you don't require very extensive pricing, then you can just use the standard base pricing, and you can use maybe just one small adjustment or something like that. So how extensively you use advanced pricing, or if you use it at all, is determined by the complexities of your pricing structure and the needs of the business. So not everybody uses advanced pricing. Those who do, again, you understand today why we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the ongoing maintenance and things that we might be able to bring some efficiencies to. You can adjust prices with advanced pricing. So you can start with a base price, and then you can adjust prices for promotionals, deals. You can combine multiple adjustments. Your adjustments can be accruals. They can add to a line. They can take away from a line. They can add to an order. You can basket multiple items together for the purposes of pricing and offering discounts or promotions. You can add free goods based upon buy one, get one 50% off, or buy two, get one free. So there are a lot of advantages to being able to use advanced pricing for promotional purposes. The third point here is it also enables you to group customers and items so that you can accommodate different market sectors and product lines. So you may have some products that only get a certain discount or have certain promotionals or free goods, while you have others that do not. And you might have certain items that you want to pull together, again, into a basket and offer a free good if they buy at least 5 items in this group of items. With customer groups, you can define them by bill to, sold to, shipped to, or parent. And you have a hierarchy, which we're not really going to cover those because those are some of the basics, but just as a part of an overview so that you know that the hierarchies can be established by you, and they can be either a sold to customer or a specific item, or they can be in any one of these sold to, shipped to, or parent groups, meaning I'm going to do sold to group or shipped to group or a parent group, and I can do the same with item groups. There are also what are called buying structures, and those will allow you to manage customer pricing based on different organizational levels. So there are some industries where customers are buying from multiple entities and the entity drives the adjustment. And so, or maybe the ship to, the ultimate ship to drives the adjustment. So buying structures enable you to have some of those tiered levels and within the organization still be able to price correctly. You can process adjustments by line. Again, you can do it in basket adjustments. You can do it in order level adjustments. And you can do some of the following things. You can change either a cost or a price, cost being a purchase order, price being a sales order, and you can do that in batches at various different points in time. It can be at receipt. Obviously, it's initially at order entry, but it can be at receipt of a PO. It can be at ship confirm of a sales order, and you can run it in batch. There are hierarchical search sequences, which I just mentioned, ship to, sold to, parent, and groups, and things like that. You can set up and track free goods, and you can also conduct an online review of adjustment history. Again, these are all some of the basics. You can also use basket adjustments to adjust the cost or prices of a basket of items that you might be buying or selling. So yes, basket repricing is available in procurement as well. Price lists can be created. I think a lot of people don't even realize or know that price lists are available in JD Edwards when you use advanced pricing. Those price lists are generated from advanced pricing records. You specify within the adjustments which ones are eligible to be included in price lists. It's very configurable, and they can be printed or they can even be pushed to a website for online ordering if you are not doing a real-time interface there. There is a pricing workbench, which enables you to view all pricing scenarios on one form. You can locate all pricing related information for a customer in different scenarios. So we're actually going to do a little bit, or I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and then the next thing as well, which is the price matrix. The price matrix enables you to add and edit multiple pricing records all on one form. And it's a really nice application. A lot of people, again, are not aware of it. And then, as we mentioned already, batch jobs are available to adjust pricing records using various criterion. So you have data selection in a batch job, and we're going to cover that as well today. So kind of bringing it down now to you as a customer. A lot of customers or users at customers have inherited an advanced pricing configuration that you might not even really fully understand. You might not have been there when it was first implemented. You might just be doing what you were shown to do, and you might not even understand all the capabilities of advanced pricing. So again, if you have questions about advanced pricing itself, we're not really going to talk about the basics of it. We're going to talk about how to do some streamlining, and that might actually help you understand a little bit more of the capabilities of the advanced pricing module. And then we'll have some Q&A at the end, and you'll have some availability or opportunity to ask questions at that time. Folks that are maintaining pricing today, you might not even have had any training on anything other than exactly here's what you do, click here, go there, and set it up this way if it's this kind of customer, or that way if it's that kind of customer or item. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how you might be able to improve on how it's set up today, and then enable you as a company to grow in your pricing model as your actual company grows. So our emphasis today is going to focus on maximizing the power that is already there in advanced pricing. So streamlining the pricing structure, we're going to focus on that first because I think that is kind of the basis of everything else thereafter. So one of the things that I've done over the years is I've been brought in many times to do exactly that. How can we streamline and improve our pricing structure? And the bottom line is the best way to streamline your pricing structure is to simplify it. And so what do we do to simplify our pricing structure without affecting the net price to the customer? How do we get from point A to point Z and it be seamless to the customer? So one of the things that I always start with is a clear plan and a very detailed pricing design. I then create a process flow diagram, which reflects the sequence of how and when a price adjustment occurs, because we're solutioning. We're not just trying to find the requirements, we're trying to find a solution. And then my motto is keep it simple, because with simplicity, we have flexibility. So simplicity, believe it or not, involves complex pricing groups. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we get further into the presentation. And it also involves using skip to options more within your adjustment schedules. And if you can do that, it should reduce the number of adjustment schedules that you feel like you have to have. So I wanted to just show you, this is a sample of a file that I received from one of my customers. Obviously, things that are confidential have been blacked out to protect the innocent, but I received this file and it had 8 of these. And each row and column is a different combination of information that drives a different price at the end of the day. And again, I received 8 of these. And I had to try and find a way to implement this in the simplest method within JD Edwards. So what did we do? Well, we started with, I think I skipped one. We started with a process flow diagram. And we asked ourselves, okay, when does a price change occur? And so we went through a series of questions and asked ourselves, does the item have a certain price, yes or no? And we did this 8 different times, one for every one of those scenarios. And then as we outlined each one of these process flows, we could then compare them and identify which ones could be combined and how they might be able to be combined. So starting with a really good design is key to understand where change can and cannot occur. And the goal here is to go from customer specific, or what we might call custom pricing, to group pricing. And again, when we talk about groups, there are multiple ways that groups can be created in the system. And a lot of people are creating basic groups and tying them directly to a customer or directly to an item. And we're going to talk a little bit about changing that model and moving to what's called complex pricing groups. So complex pricing groups, they still use category codes. And the system still uses those categories to search and select price adjustments during order process. But the difference between a basic customer group and a complex customer group is actually not in the group definition at all. It's where the group gets stored. If the group gets stored in the customer master, it is considered a basic group, and only that one group can be used to adjust pricing for that customer. A complex group could be the exact same group, but that group is tied to the adjustment itself. And that allows me then to associate different groups to different adjustments. So let's take an example. Let's say we start with a base price, and then we have maybe silver, gold, and platinum pricing. And we group everybody into one of those three groups. And how do we do that? With a category code. An S for silver, I'm a G for gold, or I'm a P for platinum. That's a category code. In the next potential upgrade or adjustment, maybe I'm doing some rounding in there as well, which might be all customers, all items. And then maybe after that, I've got some incentives that I offer to certain customers. Well, it might not be based on silver, gold, or platinum. It might be based on a completely different criteria. So now, if I only had a customer group in my customer master called, channel, I can't use that for any other adjustments because they're not based on silver, gold, or platinum. So I create a different group based on different category codes, and I associate that group to my adjustment. And now I don't have to put it on the customer master anymore. I don't have that maintenance anymore. When I enter a new customer, I just make sure that those category codes are there in the customer master, and I'm off and running. I never have to go in and adjust my pricing records at all. And I don't have to worry about, did I put that customer group on that tab in the customer master? So again, we attach the groups to the adjustment definition. And here you can see I have an item price group, I have a customer price group, and I even have an order detail group. And we're going to talk about some of these groups as well in a little bit more detail. I do want to make sure that you are aware that not all types of adjustments are supported by complex pricing groups. So it's important that if you are going to go down this path, that you understand which ones you can and cannot use complex pricing groups for. The next item that I wanted to just touch on briefly was using the skip to option. And the skip to option is, you've got two forms of skip to. You can either skip to another adjustment, or you can skip to the end. And I've seen a lot of customers, especially early JD Edwards adopters, when this did not exist, they never went back into pricing and started to utilize it. And so there are a lot of customers who have been on legacy JD Edwards that are still, they've got, 10 different schedules. I even had one customer who had thousands of schedules. Because they didn't understand how pricing worked. With skip twos, what you can say is, okay, if the system finds a match on this adjustment, do I skip to another adjustment? If there's nothing here, it just goes to the next one in the sequence. It continues to look for a price adjustment. If it finds one, it looks for a skip to. If it does have one, it applies that skip to. If it doesn't, it goes to the next one, and so on. So in this scenario, each one of these would be looked at. Now, you'll notice here, this one says, okay, skip to the end. Now, these skip twos only work if it actually finds a match on this adjustment. So if it's not a transfer order, for example, it's not going to hit this adjustment, and therefore it's not going to skip to the end. But if it is a transfer order, it's going to hit this adjustment, it's going to come over here, it's going to find this, and it's basically just going to skip all the way to the end, ignoring everything else in this schedule. So I think right then and there, you can already see the power of this. I don't have to have a different schedule for branches and things like that. Whether I'm skipping to the end or whether I'm skipping to another adjustment is dependent upon which one of these you click into. So in this example, it's going to go down, it's going to look at any of these, and it's going to come in here and go, okay, do they have a special net price? If they do, skip to the end. If they don't, let's look at freight. If they do, and I blocked out the name of this one because there's some confidentiality in the name. I'll skip to the end. Otherwise, I'm going to come down to this one. Now, if they have a contract price, then again, I don't want to do anything else with all the rest of these adjustments. So I'm going to skip all the way down to number 140. And 140 is down below. It's not significant, so I didn't show it. But you can see how now I don't have to have a different schedule for contract pricing, a different schedule for list pricing, and a different schedule for special pricing. I put it all in one schedule, and I use skip to or skip to end to control which of these adjustments actually get hit. and which ones get skipped. It's pretty slick. It was introduced in later versions of JD Edwards, but it has been around for quite a while. So how do we reduce some maintenance efforts? Some of the things that we've talked about already with groups and skip-tos, the reduction of maintenance is going to be based on some of those things. So streamlining is first very important. And then we can talk about how we can reduce your maintenance efforts based on a different configuration. So when we enter a complex price group into an adjustment definition, the complex price group becomes the only group that you can use for that specific price adjustment. It doesn't look at the customer master price group anymore. It looks at the one that's associated with the adjustment, which is a good thing. In fact, most of the time, I try always to put the groups into the adjustments because that gives you the greatest flexibility. There again, you can define prices based on how you place items or customers into groups. So for items, you're going to use the category codes that are in the item branch. Now, if your item branch is empty, it will go and look in the item master, but it will go to the item branch first and pull data from there. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the customer. The branch record is where it's going to pull data from. When it comes to the customer master, if you are using line of business, this is very useful because JD Edwards does look at the customer master information. If you don't have data in the customer master, it will go to the address book. For sales orders, we can use certain sales order detail fields and set up what's called an order detail group. And we can use some default values, and this is part of the last section that we're going to cover, that come in from advanced preferences. And we're going to talk about that when we get down to the last section. When the system uses the adjustment definition, it searches the item or customer records for category codes that match to the complex group. It doesn't look at the group that's in the item pricing tab or in the customer pricing tab. It just goes and looks at the category codes that are in the customer master or the item. And if it finds them and it can match them to the adjustment detail rules, it will go ahead and apply that adjustment definition. So again, you don't have to assign either the customer or the item price group to your master data because it only searches by category codes. You can use order detail groups to create adjustment definitions for order lines based on information in sales order detail fields. And there are a couple of header fields as well. So I'm going to start by talking about how can we utilize these groups and the batch processing that's available and some of the other mass maintenance things that are available to reduce some of those maintenance efforts. So assuming that we are using these complex groups, now we can use those complex groups to create price lists, to use price matrix and reduce, again, your maintenance efforts. We can utilize this batch update program to a much greater extent. I've got a lot of people who go, no, I don't update batches, pricing in batches. But when you actually understand how this program works, it really can be down to just one or two price detail records that you can adjust. Don't think about batch as being, oh, I have to adjust everything the same or in the same way. But in reality, I can actually nail down very specifically which records at the detail level I want to update. So we can use the batch price adjustments to reduce our maintenance efforts. And this one allows us to adjust our pricing rules by an amount, by a percent, or simply by an overridden price. So if I say I'm going to adjust the price by an amount, I am adding to the existing pricing rule. So if my pricing rule is $10 and I want to add $5, it's adding $5 to 10, making it 15. It's going to add a new record in the price adjustment schedule, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into a couple of slides away, for that $15 price, that new price. If I say I want to do it by a percent, and let's say I'm already doing something by a percent. So let's say I'm giving somebody a 5% discount, and I want to increase that to a 7% discount. So I would put in whatever the discount, the additional discount is that I would want to add here. And what it's going to do is it's going to take 5 and multiply it by whatever I have here. And that is going to be the new percent. So it's kind of a percent of a percent, if you will. An override price means it was $10 and I'm just going to now make it $15. Now, based upon which one of these options I select, this is then the amount. So if it's an amount based, it's $10. If it's a percentage base, it's a 10%. And if it's an override price, it's just going to be $10 period, as opposed to adding or subtracting, which is what these first two will do. So that's where we are just going to, it allows you to specify by how much you want to adjust the price. So the dates, we can specify the desired effective from and through dates. So as I mentioned a minute ago, the system is going to create new adjustment detail records, but it's also going to expire the current rules based on the dates that are entered in these processing options. So let's say that you're planning a price adjustment and you don't want it to take effect until the end of the year. So your effective from date would be January 1st, 2025. You can leave this blank and it will default as it normally does to 12/31/2040. But what it's going to do then is when it's adding the new price adjustment detail rule starting on 1/1, it's going to expire the applicable or the related adjustment detail records on 12/31/2024. So it backs up a day and it expires the old records. That way you can do future pricing, especially great when you're doing a promotion. And you can notify your customers in advance, get everything set up, get it all tested, deploy it, and then on the day that it's actually supposed to happen, there's nothing for you to do. It just takes effect because of that price effective date. In the data selection, and this is where pricing groups really helps, in the data selection, you can actually choose any one of the things that you see here. I know there's a lot of data, but I think you all are going to get this slide deck so you can review these in more detail. But you can see all the options that you have. All those price groups, these are all those price group category code fields. So if you want to adjust everything where the customer master category code 2 has a value of 10, then you can adjust the price of just those records. And it will go out and it will look at your price group definition. It will then go out to the price group detail rules and adjust only those detail rules that have the matching category codes. It can also be used to take the adjustment detail table or the price group definition table. So you can see in that data selection, you've got the 4072 file and you've got the 40941 file. So just kind of letting you know, you can go directly to the price definition details, or again, you can base it on those groups. So you can get very granular. I can say, I just want to adjust a specific item, or I want to adjust based on the name of a group or the name of an adjustment. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, the next program that I want to talk about is the Price Matrix application. This is a really slick application that a lot of people don't know. Some people have even thought that it was associated to items that are matrix items, or the items that have templates used primarily by, say, the garment industry. But it's not that at all. The price matrix provides some improved usability in the mass maintenance of base pricing. Any base pricing that might be in JD Edwards. In other words, I'm not using the P4106, the base price table. I instead have my base pricing in JD Edwards. And that's why, I mean, in advanced pricing. And that's why I encourage people, don't use P4106 at all. Put all of your base pricing in advanced pricing. And then I can use this price matrix to do mass updates of even base pricing. Once defined, users can maintain multiple pricing scenarios in one screen and define some basic formulas based on other intersections in the matrix. So in your adjustment definition, you specify which adjustments are eligible or included in the price matrix application. And you bring those into the price matrix application for the purpose of viewing everything that is related to those combinations, those intersections. It's quite amazing how powerful it actually is and how much information it pulls in for you. It is a two-dimensional view of price adjustment detail records, and it's based on item group, customer group, and order detail group combinations. So you can even do your base pricing in groups of items or groups of customers. And a great example is the garment industry, or the furniture industry is another good example, where I might be building or making some jeans, and I've got the same size, but maybe it's a different color. But I've got those all in a group for pricing. They're the same price. But because they're different colors, it's a different item. Do I really have to put up a base price for every one of those items? Or can I say everything that's in the jeans group is going to be priced in the following way as a base price? And the same thing with customer group and even order detail group. The price matrix enables you to add and edit multiple pricing records in one form. And it's used to add and maintain base prices as advanced pricing overrides. So again, you can't use this for like percentage rules or things like that. It's specifically for price overrides. So here's an example of what it looks like. You can use multiple price matrices, and you can define these according to what makes sense for you. And because it's two-dimensional, it's going to ask you, okay, what's the adjustment name? What is the item group and customer group that's associated to that adjustment? It actually pulls that in automatically based on the adjustment. And then what are the category codes that you want to pull in for the purpose of viewing and maintaining your price matrix records? So you select which one you want. Well, you create these first, sorry. Then you select which one you want. And you can then go in and edit, and it's going to show you all of the associated prices that it pulled in. The main benefits of using the price matrix functionality are pricing can be defined based on specific attributes. Again, those complex groups. It provides a grid with dimensions that are based on the attributes that drive pricing. It can greatly simplify your pricing setup. Again, you don't have to have all those base prices. You can just put in a group of customers or items and establish base pricing using advanced pricing. It allows simultaneous viewing and editing of large numbers of F4072 records, your actual price detail records. So if you're going into the P4072 one by one and updating your pricing rules, you might be better off trying to put all of the maintenance and everything into the price matrix and another program that I'm going to talk about, which is the mass maintenance program. It allows quick navigation through vast quantities of adjustment detail records. It also provides real-time calculation of pricing formulas. This is so cool. I'm going to show you just some screenshots of this. But again, at the end, you guys can ask questions, and I would be happy to show you a little bit more about this in some one-on-one sessions as well. It supports combinations of complex pricing groups, and it supports import and export, which I think is one of the most powerful things that this particular program offers. Most people, when they're working up base pricing, they do it in Excel. And then they go in and they import it. Now, there is a Z file process for the 4106 where you can import item by item by item into the P4106 or even in some customer groups as well. But again, if you can use advanced pricing to do it, you're going to have a better capability to use this price matrix, which is not available with simple base pricing. So the next one that I'm going to talk to you about is the mass maintenance application. This one, unlike the price matrix, which is based on override prices, this one is based on all of the price adjustment detail records that are in the P4072 or the F4072 file. So you can use this one to adjust percentages. You can use this to take anything that you want in combinations of customer group and item group and things like that. And again, you can create new pricing records, or in this particular program, you can also copy. So if you've got a new customer, let's say you are doing some pricing by customer or even by customer group, and you want to copy those pricing rules to another customer, you can pull up your pricing rules that are in there by customer. You can click the copy button, and it's going to take all those rules and copy them over, and then you can tweak them as you might need to. So that's one of the things that it certainly can do. If desired, you can create what are called search agents. Search agents can be used to find all the price adjustment records that are to be updated or copied, and they are based on, again, those category codes. So now it's going to go into the pricing rules, and it's going to search on category codes to find items that the price change is going to apply to. You can search for and update desired adjustments via the QBE line, which is really cool. There are very few programs where I can actually put an entry in the QBE line, and that entry becomes what I am adjusting by. I don't have to go into another form and put in what I want to adjust. I put it in the QBE line, and it uses that data to actually do the update. It does also work with price matrix lines. So if I used the price matrix to create price adjustments for overrides, it can also still update those records. It again does not apply to all adjustment types, as some require some additional configuration. For example, formulas or variable tables. It's not going to go in and adjust a formula or a variable table. It adjusts the pricing rule. So anything that requires any additional configuration, a rounding rule is another example. It's not going to apply to those types of adjustments. And it can be used for sales, purchasing, and even receipt pricing records. So how do we now leverage some of the related modules that we have in order to better manage pricing and kind of streamline some of the pricing that we have? So a lot of folks know that there are fields in the order detail that can be used to vary pricing. So I can manually type into, say, PC1, PC2, or PC3 a field. I can manually type in a branch plant or a header branch plant, or I can use the end use field, for example, to price. But some folks don't realize that you can also default values into some of those same fields using preferences. Now, there are basic customer preferences and there are advanced preferences. And I personally find the basic customer preferences to be very high maintenance. So I never use them anymore unless there isn't an advanced preference that's available for the particular task that I want to have the preference do. I will always set up advanced preferences first. It was introduced in 8.9, and I believe that it's one of the best things that Oracle did to enhance the sales order system as a whole. It works in the same exact way as advanced pricing. In fact, it uses the same programs the advanced preferences do. But let's talk first about why we use preferences. We use them to override default information. And we do that for specific sales orders, and it's based on either specific customer or customer groups or items and item groups and the combinations thereof. So I may want to say, well, if my customer qualifies for this, and if it's this type of an item, then I want to put into PC1 a value of 2. And then I can take my advanced pricing and create a group off of PC1 where if it's equal to 2, I'm going to give my customer a 2% discount. So it's used to default information into fields where my advanced pricing then can utilize that data at the order level and price according to the data that has been put in there. Now, users can still put data in those fields manually. They've been available a long time. But if you find that it is more rules driven, then you can set up those rules as advanced preferences and have the system default those. And now you don't have to have the user trying to remember to put that data in, which can be mistake prone or error prone. So it is best used when there are consistent business requirements that differ from those default values. They were developed to provide the capability of preference functionality, but to work with complex item groups and complex customer groups. Again, right now, and I mentioned this before, the basic preferences I find to be very high maintenance. Why? Because you have to go in one at a time and associate the groups or the customers to each preference rule. And there's just a lot of maintenance there. With this model, because it's just like advanced pricing, you're going to create a complex item group or a complex customer group, and you associate those to the preference itself. So again, now it's just looking at the category codes, and I don't have to go into my basic preferences and do any management at all, nor do I have to add those groups to my item master or my customer master. So many people find the setup for advanced pricing to be a lot more intuitive and even familiar if they've already been using advanced pricing. Basic and advanced pricing does still work together. So if you are using advanced pricing for some things and you are using basic pricing for some things, that's okay. It will still utilize both. It goes to advanced preferences first, and it resolves all of the advanced preferences. And then it goes out and looks for any basic preferences. If it finds advanced preferences, though, it will then not apply the basic preference to the same criteria. So advanced preferences will override base preferences, but if it doesn't find an advanced preference, it will then go look for a base preference and apply that if it finds one. So here's an example. As I mentioned, my PC1, when using an order detail group in advanced pricing, so I'm going to set up an advanced pricing adjustment, and I'm going to associate an order detail group to that adjustment. And then I'm going to use my preference to default a value into that PC1 code. And I do that by setting up an order detail group. And I'm going to make it be based on only this field. Now, if you're familiar with groups, you know I can put in a 2 or a 3 anywhere in here. But to keep things simple on this one, I just chose one field. So I'm going to use this one field in the order detail, which is line by line. And I am going to set up an advanced preference to default whatever value is applicable by item, by customer, or again, by groups thereof. So here's an example of where a preference and pricing is being used together. So I've entered my price adjustment now, and I've said I want to base it on that sales detail value 1, which is that PC1 code. And now I'm going to say, okay, if the customer or customer group is business, if the item group is product, and my order detail group is then code, then I want to look for an O2 in PC1. And if I find O2 in PC1, I'm going to add on 60%, or I'm going to add on 55% if it's an O3, or something to that effect. Actually, I think 5 is an add-on amount. So this would be an example of where I'm just putting in $60 to add to whatever I already have in there. So that's just an example of where at the order level, I can price dynamically based upon these values, which is really different if you're not used to doing that. So again, we add the order detail group and we add the price adjustment detail. And according to the first row of data below, if PC1 equals 2, we're going to add $60 to the price. PC1 gets populated either manually or by our advanced preference. The advanced preference setup looks like this. It has what I call if-then type functionality, or driver fields and receiving fields. And you'll know that by the font color. So on the left, when we go into the advanced preference setup, we then go to the preference detail values. And this is the screen that's going to pop up for an order detail group. Now, this is going to look different whether it's, depending on the type of preference that you are calling. But for this particular one, this order detail defaults, these are the fields that are going to pop up for you. And if it has a black font, that's a driver field, or what you might call part of the if condition. So I'm going to say, if my business unit is M30, and if the end use field is AVA, then populate PC1 with an O2. So the blue font is what will be resulting from these driving fields over here. And if you're not sure, you can just start putting data into them. You can just start putting data in there and you'll see either a blue or a black font. And believe it or not, I can actually even use some of these fields as driver fields to change the same field. So the end use is a driver field, but it's also a receiving field. And so is the business unit. So, depending on combinations, it might start out as M30, but if end use is AVA, I want to change it from M30 to D30 or something like that. So the if fields can also flow into the then fields. And you can use multiple if conditions as you see here, okay? Then based on the population of this being an O2, my advanced pricing record of $60 would pick that up and apply that $60 to the price of the item. And there you can see the end result is it applied that price adjustment and it put in that $60, giving me a net price of $60 because this one was set up as an override as well as an add-on. Okay, making progress here. So first, I just want to kind of reemphasize, have a very good detailed pricing plan. Sit down, take the time, design it out, flow it out in a process flow diagram to make sure that you understand the sequence of these price adjustments. Try to keep it as simple as you can. Yes, simple means complex groups to maximize the power and flexibility of advanced pricing. Use that skip to feature. Use the mass price update tools that we talked about and utilize those additional modules to help drive the population of some of those fields that those pricing rules then will pick up. So I want to open it up for some question and answer at this point. I think we're making pretty good progress. We've got about 10 minutes left. So I think we're going to open it up for some questions. I know we have some questions that might have been posted in the chat.
Thank you, Candide. And I would like to remind all of our attendees that if you do have any questions for our speaker, you can feel free to enter those into the chat module in Zoom right now. Otherwise, Candide, I actually haven't received any questions in the Zoom chat yet. So if there's anything else that you wanted to cover or any reminders that you wanted to give out, I think now would be a good time.
All right. Well, I do want to go through and just let you guys have some contact information for me. If there are any questions at all that you might have, feel free to reach out. I think you all will receive this presentation as well. So this will be available to you in that presentation. All right. And I think that's it for me. So if there are no questions, save the date. Blueprints coming up soon.
Thank you, Candide. And we did actually receive one question while I was giving my closing there is, can you explain the percentage and the processing options again?
Yes. So you're talking about, I assume, the batch price update program. And the percentage is going to add to the existing percentage. unless you do it as an override. So for example, if I say I want to use option 2, let me see if I can go back to that slide. I'm going to use option 2, and which is a percent of change, right? And what this is going to do is it's going to take whatever value I put in here. Again, let's say it's 2%. And let's say, for example, that my price is currently being adjusted by 5%. And I want to increase that percentage by 2%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2% here. I'm going to put percent here, and it's going to take 2% of 5%. Okay. So it's not going to replace 5% with 2%, and it doesn't add 2% to 5% to make it 7. It multiplies 2% by 5% and gives you the net of that. So you have to be careful when you're using the percent that you really do understand exactly what it's going to do. If you want to increase your percentage by, say, you want to double it, okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to multiply it by 100%, because then it's going to take 100% of 5, and which is another 5, and it'll make that now be a total of 100 or 10, sorry. So you just know that this is going to do math against the existing percentages that are already in there. I hope that answers the question, but if not, feel free to post another question follow-up in the chat on that.
Thank you, Candide. I did get a follow-up question is, don't you end up with a lot of decimal places in that case?
So yes, you actually can, and that's why I like to use rounding rules. And if you've never used rounding rules, they are very powerful. You can round very specifically up and down in multiple ways, and I would love to do a follow-up session just on rounding rules. But you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm taking 2% of 5%, and now I've got, let's say it's 5.2525, and you want to round that, you can it'll do that math, and then you add a rounding rule to either round up or down, and that takes care of those percentage or those decimal points. It doesn't make sense to have pricing in 3 and 4 decimals unless you have a requirement to buy minimum order quantities, and then it might make a difference of a penny or 2. But that is still very minor. So unless you're in a very small manufactured item type of model where you're selling nails and screws or things like that, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to price beyond 2 decimals. So rounding rules allows you to say, I don't ever want cents, or I only want to have 2 decimals, and you can round to, say, 99.99. I'm going to charge $39.99 or 95, or you can adjust it all the way down to 00. So rounding rules is how I address that. And sometimes you do just kind of want to go in and refresh some of the pricing rules if they are getting a little too detailed in their percentages. And that's why it's important to know exactly how this one happens, because if I do say 2% of 5%, I am going to get a decimal even in the percentage of the calculation. So it's probably not the best example that I could have used. You probably wouldn't take 2% of 5%, but maybe you would if you're only doing a very minor or incremental adjustment, and then I would use rounding to address that. All right. Hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Candide. And if you don't mind, actually, would you mind to put up your contact info again, just for everybody? But otherwise, that's the last question that we've received, and I think we're probably good to go. So, Candide, unless there's anything else that you'd like to run through, I think we can go ahead and end things.
Let me put that up for you guys. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. I hope you found this session valuable. Hope to do it again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Candide. And once again, I'd like to thank you for sharing your expertise with everybody today. And for all the attendees out there, I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's, Quest Experience Week session. And for more education, I'd recommend you save the date for Blueprint 4D, which is June 9th through 13th in Las Vegas. That's going to be at the Venetian this year. And just as a reminder for everybody, registration for that event is open this week. So I'd recommend you go ahead and check that out on our website. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a good day, and thanks once again for joining us.
Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.